Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Chef Yusuf show, where we attempt to cook the Islamic way. On the authority of Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, she mentioned that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to love al-halwa wal-asal. Al-asal means honey, al-halwa, it could be a name of a certain thing, but it comes from the root word halawa, which means something sweet. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to love honey and used to love sweet things. Today, inshallah, we're going to make something really sweet, a sweet pastry that comes from Bilad al-Sham, from Syria, from Jordan, and some parts of Egypt as well, and in Iraq it is also known. This is called Knafa. Knafa is important because it uses the phyllo dough, and this will teach us the fundamentals of using this phyllo dough in our pastry. And it's used commonly in the Greek pastry, and you can do a lot of things with it. The other important things about Knafa, it uses cheese, and when you put cheese on anything, it becomes a dairy product, which means that you have to eat it quickly, and you cannot ship it and transport it to different. You can't really have authentic knafa from the source, right? So you have to get it locally from either your bakery or from the restaurant. And what happens if the restaurant does not master how to make knafa? You are not gonna be satisfied, and therefore you're not gonna buy it again. And therefore, you're going to harm the good kanafas, the restaurants that only specialize in kanafa. So making it at home will give you the opportunity to know how it really tastes. Last Ramadan, we had kanafa that basically had spaghetti, spaghetti with some color and some cheese. It wasn't authentic, and the people who I ate it with probably will never buy it again. Alright, so there are multiple types of kanafa. There is the kanafa that is khishna, which means that is rough. The phyllo dough is rough. And there is the na'ma, which is very soft and very smooth. And there is the half and half. And there is also other things like makhruma, which is like a tube where you have the cheese in the middle. So today we're going to make the kanafa na'ma, which is the most common one. We do need some phyllo dough that we're going to shred in a food processor. And we're going to have some soft phyllo dough over here. So this is the main ingredient. Okay, now before we can use the phyllo dough, we have to treat it. So we put it in a bowl like this, and we add some butter, and we try to rub it with the butter. And this way it will be cooked and will be crisp, and it will be very tasty. Other thing we need some cheese. This is commonly known as table cheese that comes from Akka or Akkawi cheese. Why do we use Akkawi cheese? Because it has a property that it can melt, but at the same time it will when it cools down, it still has its good texture. What's unique about Akkawi cheese? Using mozzarella cheese, what happens when you make a pizza, you really have really nice melted cheese, but when it cools the second day, you know how it becomes thick and it gets hard, right? So it's not really doesn't have good texture. Akkawi cheese, it comes from the Syria Akka, so it does have that texture. When it cools down, it still has good soft bite and chunk to it, right? The other thing is because they authentically used to put a lot of salt because they didn't have refrigeration method. Usually it comes extremely salted, so you have to treat it, put it in water 24 hours to remove the salt. Today age, if you live in the West, you probably have some cheese factories who make this cheese unsalted, and this is the best choice to go with. So we have some cheese, and if you don't have the Akkawi or Nablus cheese, you can use the mozzarella with some ricotta cheese, but you have to eat it hot, and this is the best result. Okay, we have pastry coloring over here, color number 40, red number 40. This has some starches and some number 6, but it is a chemical base color. All right, it is something that I did not like to talk about in previous episodes, but technically, when you do it at home, I rather skip this. But when you have a restaurant, what happens is when you have colored pastry, it will sell better. So therefore, it might be necessary if you have a business to maximize profits. For garnish, we have some pistachio that we crush, and that's all we need. We need some butter, of course, and this is where we're gonna start with. We're gonna start with butter on the pan. And I'm wearing my glove because I'm using the coloring agent, so we don't color our hands. So we have a tablespoon here of butter. We have butter, as you can see. And you have some, maybe half a teaspoon of the color agent, and this will give the color of the Knafa. And this is the trick. You use the butter in the bottom of the pan and you start coloring the pan. And this is an introduction of how to use color in your food. You have the bottom of the pan with some butter and some red color, and this is what gives the color of the knafa itself. Now you do not want to add a lot of phyllo dough on top, and in fact the thickness of the knafa with the cheese should be like the thickness of your finger. So get yourself the cheese, get yourself a shredder, and go ahead and distribute the cheese over your knafa evenly. All right, so we have a thick layer of cheese, we have a layer of phyllo dough, and food coloring with some butter. This will go in the oven, 350-375 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes. So the knafa is in the oven, and right now is the time to make qatar or syrup. Now their syrup is a little bit different from the syrup that we use on our pancake, but it has a unique flavor that comes from certain ingredients. To make qatar is really easy. You add 1 portion of sugar with 1 portion of water. You boil it down to the right consistency. You put some lemon, you put some blossom water or rose water, and you add some orange blossom water, and this is what will give it its Middle Eastern taste, right? So because we live in America, we can do actually syrup easier and within few seconds using corn syrup. America is known to have cheaper corn syrup. So you add a little bit of water and you add syrup to the point where the syrup is thick enough that you want it. You add these ingredients and voila, you have a Middle Eastern syrup. Really quick, really easy, no need to cook. This is how you make syrup in few seconds. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So I did remove the knafa from the oven. The cheese should melt, but it should not golden, so you want to make sure it doesn't golden, so it will melt a little bit. So what we're going to do, we're going to flip this over, and as I mentioned, you know, other restaurants or other pastry places, they make it differently, so they might have a secret recipe to do this. So flipping it over is one of the things that we can do. Just want to unstick the borders over here. So let's go ahead and attempt to do this and let's see if it will work. Okay, bismillah. Okay, so after we remove it, as you can see, the food coloring, depending on how much food coloring you add, it depends how much the food coloring there is. So when I added the food color, I didn't add that much, so that's why you see a little bit of paleness in the red in the knafa here. So final steps is we get our syrup that we prepared earlier, and we go ahead and drizzle it on the knafa. And the last thing we can do is we can put some ground pistachio here. We can cut it with a pizza cutter, serve it hot or serve it cold. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. We will see you next time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.